Anyway, Justin Sun effectively buys the exchange. Now Jared obviously gets worried, so he makes a post and he goes, "Hey, I'm concerned about like my data and about Justin Sun now knowing where I live because I've done KYC. I don't want my data to now be going into international hands. You should have told us before you sold it so I could have shut down my accounts and you could have deleted my data." Then, like you say, they came back and they're like, whatever. That's not what happened at all. By the way, you don't meet our listing criteria. Haha, fuck you, DigiByte.
And hey everyone, I have the fantastic pleasure today of chatting with the one and only Josiah Spackman, DigiByte community member and the guy who runs the Daily DigiByte and DigiByte and Friends podcast. I hope I got all those right. Dry run.
We're good.
Yeah, so other than just to have a generic good old-fashioned crypto chat, one thing that came up recently, of course, was CZ of Binance, Changpeng Zhao of Binance, buying.
Oh, he's my favorite.
Yes, buying CoinMarketCap, and I wrote an article about that, and in that, I remember I dug up from memory lane one of his buddies, Justin Sun of Tron, and his ownership over the Poloniex exchange, which abruptly delisted DigiByte. Did they actually follow through with that? Do you remember?
I'm pretty sure it has actually happened now. Like they just like kicked the can down the road a little bit and didn't do it when they said they would. But I think it actually has happened. I don't have an account, so I can't.
So the recap from my perspective, and this is why I'm going for an insider to find a little bit more insider, whatever. Not as in trading insider, but whatever.
Yeah.
Is what I saw is there was a Twitter exchange where Jared Tate, DigiByte founder, was disagreeing with Poloniex over basically their new ownership and did not want some privacy issues. There's a few. He was not happy for a few different reasons. And so the Poloniex official Twitter answered and just answered what he was saying in the same tweet. Said, by the way, we found that DigiByte does not meet our standards, so we're going to delist it. In the most petty, hilarious... I mean, honestly, I thought that was pretty hilarious. It wasn't even...
I thought they were joking. Like you say, it was that petty. It was like, are they actually serious here? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, by the way, your mother so-and-so. It's like, it was like that level of like... It read like a Donald Trump tweet where he can't wait till the next tweet to give the diss. He has to cram it into there. He's like... foreign policy going great. By the way, the Democrats are losers. It's like, it's like he crammed it into that tweet. And so that's kind of like, first off, I thought, wow, this is kind of crazy that an exchange will just do that. And then, of course, when the whole Steemit takeover thing happened, I noticed that Binance, Huobi, and Poloniex all acted together to protect Justin Sun's new toy that was revolting against him, and those three acting together so fast. And then, of course, Huobi and Binance. Didn't watch Poloniex what happened, but those two at least pretty quickly just sorry, technical difficulty or mistake, and then after the outcry they rolled it back. But the fact that they just acted that quickly shows that there's a little bit of a, I don't want to use the word cartel because it might be premature to say stuff like that, but there's definitely an inside club going on there. So
they're buddies, right? Like, you'd get on the phone with your mate and go, "Hey man, we're all gonna go, save my blockchain. Can you help me out here?"
Yeah. So how did that whole thing shake out from your more complete knowledge on the subject?
So I think that's probably a pretty, like, the general view that you've got of that is pretty close to what happened there with, as far as we were aware. We'd been in recent talks with them since the ownership change from Poloniex to Circle or whatever. We'd been in like great talks with them the whole time.
And was DigiByte listed at that point? It was, right?
Yeah, we'd been listed on Poloniex, I think, around about since the same time as Bittrex. So we're talking like mid 2014.
Yeah, a
Like
long time ago.
they were one of the earliest ones. Since 2014, they've been great. They were actually the first major exchange to offer us like a USDT or whatever they've got something else. It's USDC or something, isn't it? You can deposit USD and you get your DigiByte, like a direct pairing, which was really quite cool. This was back 2 years ago now, I think, just on 2 years ago. Like so clearly, like there's some goodwill there. They like us. We've been talking with them. They've talked previously with Jared. They know some of the other developers that are involved with DigiByte and things, and we get on great. It's awesome, or at least we did. And then, so you're right. Jared was basically concerned about the fact that his data, which he'd gone and entrusted to an American company, which is why he used Poloniex in the past.
Which I don't know if that means anything.
Sorry?
I don't know if that means anything, like an American company, seeing how, how many American companies have not done.
I know, but he's fiercely patriotic and whatever. Like that's totally up to him. I had no problem with ownership changing hands. It's gonna happen, right? Like projects grow bigger, they go smaller. Poloniex has been on its last legs ever since they removed the troll box back in the days, which is probably why they sold out first of all to Circle and then subsequently to Justin Sun.
Yes. I wonder, do you think there's a correlation, like a causation kind of thing with the troll box removal? Or do you think it just...
that when everything turned to shit? I never used it, but I would always sit there and watch it, and it was really interesting. It's entirely possible because the thing is around about that time, when did they actually remove it? Do you remember?
I don't have the date in front of me, but it was a couple years ago. I remember because back in the day, and so I started working with Dash in 2016, late 2016, and a little bit after that, and so during that whole time, I was involved in swatting away trolls like flies that were just coming around throwing FUD, doing all that kind of stuff, which is not quite as common anymore in crypto. And it was a lot of Monero people back then, and they were all filled into the troll box. And so I remember just looking at the troll box, and so people would drop some crazy nuggets of truth in there, like wow. So yes, I remember I kind of sort of cared a little bit when they ended up removing it, but it was still kind of fading away. So based on that completely arbitrary metric, I'd say some point in like 2018.
I seem to recall it happening and fading into oblivion around about like 2017, mid to late. I don't recall because I don't actively trade or anything. So if I need to, I'll go and I'll get myself some DigiByte. I'll go, cool, got some DigiByte, and I'll basically try and buy it locally. But I remember back in the day when I first got into Bitcoin, I was using it, and it was the place to be, like in 2014 sort of thing, late 2013. Everyone was like there and using the troll box, and it was a more impromptu kind of discussion compared to like Bitcoin Talk, which everybody else was on. So those were the two places where people mostly congregated, right? Like it was Bitcoin Talk or the troll box. That was where you got your news.
Yeah. So then we had this slide, and then it ended up being bought by Justin Sun. And what happened then?
Well, so at first there was no problems. We'd gotten wind of it happening like a couple weeks prior, and this sort of thing happens, right? Like, what are you going to do about it? You can't kick up a stink and go, oh, like Cryptopia New Zealand's being bought out by some other company and kick up a stink. You're a commercialist project. What are you going to do about it?
Of course.
Like, suck it up. And as far as I was concerned, I mean, sure, our trading volume there was pretty slim to begin with. It's not like I think our average trading volume there, they were about 2 to 3% of our volume. But we, on certain days, were doing like 20 to 30% of their volume. Some days. Most of the time we weren't like right up there, though. We were definitely in the top kind of maybe 15 to 20 quite regularly in their trading volume. And so it was fine. Like, we'd had a great bunch of discussions back and forth, especially with the prior management team. The prior management team had they were going through and they're reviewing all of their projects, like every single one, stringently reviewing it, going, right, which version of Bitcoin Core are you based on? What have you gone and done with all of these things? What's your hash power like? How difficult is it to attack your network? If someone wanted to try and 51% attack or double spin, And they'd come to us and they're like, right, we don't understand multi-shield. We don't. And we're going to be upfront about it. So we've hired an independent cryptographer. They also don't understand exactly how this is working. Who wrote it, and can you help us to understand it? So we're kind of going, oh shit, we could probably do a better job of like documenting things, right? Like how it works, why it works, and that kind of thing. So, okay, point taken for us. We'll make a note. We'll do some shit, and I've written a bunch about it ever since. And this was like 12 months ago now. And they were like, right, so we've got somebody and we've hired them. They're a full-time like expert cryptographer, and they're really excited about multi-shield, but they just want to clarify a couple of things. So we were talking with them, and we got some of the brains behind multi-shield to go and have a chat with them and clarify some of the numbers and why it worked and how it worked. And they came back and they were like, are these numbers correct? We think we've gone and tweaked this and this works. And are some of these forecasts and projections and estimates of if someone were to try and attack you, are they correct? We came back and we're like, actually, they're not quite right. Here's how you tweak it. You've kind of missed this number here. It should be like a 5 instead of a 4. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, no worries. Fix their numbers up, and they came back and they're like, are you fucking kidding us? Like, this is amazing. Like, we love like, this is great. Why are more projects not using it? Well, we don't freaking know. It's open source, and we've been telling people it's great, but whatever. And so they basically like they were writing this blog post, and I've probably got I'm sure I've still got the document somewhere from them. They were writing a blog post which basically said, yes, it's amazing. Yes, we're big fans of DigiByte. We've supported DigiByte for however many years now. Multi-shield is great. DigiByte is super secure and is less susceptible to an attack compared to like Bitcoin. If you were to take the top like 3 pools, they could potentially dominate Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV like forever. You can't do that with DigiByte. There is a finite cap that'll basically, well, it's not finite cap, but an exponential growth difficulty.
Yeah.
And they were like, this is a great idea. This is fantastic. So we love it. And they were going to make a great big blog post and show their support and things. And their legal team actually came back and said, we're not too sure if you should be throwing your weight like behind a project like that and kind of playing favorites.
Yeah, it's like trade manipulation a little bit.
Exactly. That's basically what they said. So what can you do? They were like, okay, well, sorry, you guys have the document, but that's about the end of it. And we were still on great terms. We're like, oh, well, that's a bummer, because we would have loved to have seen that kind of like show of support from what was it once one of the biggest, if not the biggest exchange back in the day, maybe second biggest.
It's up there.
It was up there, right? Yeah.
In importance, at least. Now, was that before the Tron days or after?
That was in, I think, around about March, April, May, and June of 2019. So just under 12 months ago. So, like, this is still recent.
Yeah.
Well, recent enough,
Yeah.
And so ownership changed hands. When was it? It was last year. I think we got wind of it like October-ish. We'd still been talking with them and catching up with them, and they were, whatever. They were looking to add another trading peer for us. I think they were going to add like Ethereum or something. Anyway, Justin Sun effectively buys the exchange directly, indirectly, whatever. No one cares. He owns it. So what? And now Jared obviously gets worried. So he makes a post and he goes, hey, I'm concerned about like my data and about Justin Sun now knowing where I live because I've done KYC. I don't want my data to now be going into international hands. You should have told us before you sold it so I could have shut down my accounts and you could have deleted my data. Then, like you say, they came back and they're like, whatever. That's not what happened at all. By the way, you don't meet our listing criteria. Haha, fuck you, DigiByte.
Yeah, which is kind of it's kind of crazy. Now, the identity and information in domestic versus foreign hands, that's something that I don't particularly care about. Now, but it's different. I don't give it to
either, but he's got a little bit of a point. Like you can understand why, as the founder of a blockchain project, he might be a little bit concerned about Justin Sun knowing where he lives.
Yeah,
even if it's like an old address, because I think he moved, but I'm sure he moved.
Yeah, because now it's a competitor. It's like that becomes a little bit. That's where it becomes a little bit of a thing. It's not just an exchange and their compliance department. It's just like, well, that guy, the universal that guy of the space. And that's the thing. It's been kind of funny to watch is just how So like I remember, do you remember the days when Tron was known as the plagiarized white paper coin?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh, the all it's ever been to me.
yeah, but that's what I'm
I'm
saying.
actually trying.
It still is. It still basically is.
Yeah.
And but it seems like there's been a bunch of, what people tend to call shitcoins over the years of, projects with a lot of hype and just not a lot of extra substance to justify that existence that have been popping up here and there. And they come and they go and they come and they go. And then, I always think about Verge, which is, it rebranded from Dogecoin Dark.
Yep.
And
Which was a fork of Dogecoin. And
yes, and doesn't actually obfuscate transactions. Like it's not actually what one call a privacy coin. Like it doesn't do the one thing it's advertised to do, and it's explicitly named, funny pun, explicitly named after male genitals, right? That's what the name that's what the name means, and so it's literally,
does it really? Oh,
yes.
that's funny.
And then they did this whole Pornhub thing, which is kind of funny also. So it's literally,
MindGeek contacted us before that
Yes.
as well. Had they talked with you about that?
no, but
Yeah, MindGeek contacted us. They're like, "Hey, we want you to raise a whole bunch of money."
yeah, well, anyways,
Like, I don't have fucking money.
so you have things like that just, whatever just comes and gets a bunch of money and goes. But Tron,
Yep.
I mean, Justin Sun seems to be bigger than Tron for sure. He seems to be someone who's come into the space, who has created this project, has made money off of that, but now, and I liken it to an old school Italian mobster buying like a restaurant to like be legit after he's retired from his dirty stuff.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
as the Mexican cartels do, they buy cattle ranches. That's kind of their version of that. So in doing so, now you have, Tron, first off, buy and exchange, which I'm sure, is good for pumping the actual coin Tron, but also, it's a business. It's a legit business. And
What do you think their primary trading pair is now? It's
yeah,
like,
exactly. And then buying Steam it and like just trying to actually get pieces of the real world. And of course, on its own, it seems a little bit annoying maybe, but not that worrying. But then when the absolute number one exchange, don't tell me it's anything else, the absolute number one exchange in the world by huge margin, and another one just like act in concert.
not number one by volume, not number one by legitimacy.
Yes, but definitely number one by importance in the space. It's like the big one. It is definitely the big one. And even though there is an exchange called Big One, I'm not talking about that one. I'm talking about Binance. The number one, that now, again, buying CoinMarketCap is now another big piece of the space. So you have this group of people that just kind of circling around.
And they're also printing money in the same way with Binance Coin.
Yes, and Huobi token. Let's not forget about that one.
Yeah.
And so between, and their top projects, right? That Huobi token, Binance Coin, and
Again, top projects by market cap, just
Tron,
so we're
yes.
clear for all the viewers. Like,
Yes.
they're not like top projects, buy my shitcoin. Like,
yes, and in full disclosure, I have cursorily looked into Tron and not pretty much at all into the other two, so I can't comment on that. But basically, you have like a formation of some kind of a group which might tend to centralize elements of the crypto space, or big elements, in fact. So now, do you think first off, do you think that's even a problem? And second, like, how big of a problem, and is it a problem that will go away, or do we have to actually actively do something about it ahead of time?
well, it's really funny that you mentioned that as well, about them like coming out and they're going to be like, right, I'll buy this business so I look legitimate, and I'll use my ill-gotten gains from over here. We actually have something similar in New Zealand with some of our gangs and things, and they're now trying to start up enterprises. And like, so something will happen. Like, for example, we're basically as a country are going into lockdown, and so some of the gangs are saying, what we'll do is we'll deliver to people's homes. We'll go and we'll get groceries for people who are unable to, and we will deliver them to their homes because they're in lockdown and they're the marginalized, or they are the elderly who are not able to do it. They don't stop and tell you that they're doing this and they're funding the ability to do this kind of thing with money made from effectively cooking meth and things like that. So that's very similar to what you're talking about here. Is
Yeah.
you're washing the money.
Yes. Now, before we get screamed at by people by saying we're accusing these people of being criminals and stuff, I don't know. I don't know yet. I mean, I'd have to.
You can
Yeah,
wash
well,
your
that's what
hands
I'm
and
saying.
say, I am fucking.
I'd have to actually look into, we're at the stage of shady things, and that doesn't mean like outright despicable and criminal activity, although that could be happening, right? Let's just be
that much is very clear that it is shady. Like we can both agree on that. Where there's usually smoke, or where there's smoke, there's usually fire, I think is the best way of summing that up.
Yeah, and so I noticed.
Just ask Roger Ver about Mount Gox, right? Like, I've seen the bank accounts. I know it's fine.
Yeah, apparently it wasn't. And then you get to back when Binance lost a bunch of money in a hack. They're like, "Oh, we're going to be fine. We're going to recover from this." But yeah, we might just decide to roll back the Bitcoin blockchain a little bit. I can have it done in a couple days. And then people were like,
I said 12 days.
He said like 2, I think. It was like a couple. It was something extremely short. He said he could get it rolled back. Like he would just call some friends and get it done. Was the implication? Yep. And
it seemed legitimate. If you took like I think I factored it on like 3 exchanges, not exchanges, 3 mining pools based out of China. Not even all of them.
Mm-hmm.
They could still, if he were to, let's say for example, so they lost what, $40 million or something. If he were to offer 20 million to them and split it between them, coupled in the fact that they would then get every single transaction reward, every single block reward, they would come out a net benefit, like they would have quadrupled their money or something. This is in their best fucking interests to do this, to act selfishly. So they could have got on the phone with them and gone, "Hey guys, what we're going to do is we're just going to go back here. We're going to, effectively roll back the chain."
Yeah, and ultimately they decided it was not in their financial best interest because the reputation damage of Bitcoin and all of cryptocurrency as a result would have probably tanked their own holdings and it wouldn't have worked out. And so,
but it's doable.
Yeah, and that was like, I have not heard anyone talk about that. Everyone talks about, Jihan Wu and the Bitmain people and all this stuff, and they're all could, but they're relatively tight-lipped about that stuff, at least publicly. Just to have like CZ just say, we're gonna roll back Bitcoin, like, what? You can just get this done, Lord CZ? It's like, that was a little bit of a bold-faced, kind of anti-decentralization sort of comment.
So he was like tired as fuck. He hadn't slept. I mean, you just lost $40 million. Of course, you're going to be a little bit upset. It doesn't matter that you're worth like close to $1 billion. You still lost. That's a lot of money, no matter who you are or where you're from. Even if Bill Gates were to go, "Fuck, I've just lost $40 million," sure, he might stay up for a day and go, "I wonder if I can get that back." He was clearly tired on that AMA. I was watching it live when he put it up on Periscope, despite the fact that he blocked me, but whatever. And he kind of came out. He's like, because he was like right down in the corner of his screen, or was it this side, whatever. And he's like, and we reckon we could roll back the chain, and it would take a couple days.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not ideal circumstances to be talking to this guy, but at the same time, yes, ideal circumstances, because that's when stuff goes out. So do you think this sort of thing, first off, do you think it's a big problem for crypto?
Yeah. I think this is probably the biggest problem that crypto has right now. Like, sure, you could do minor centralization is a big problem specifically for Bitcoin. I don't so much give a shit about the country that it's in. But the centralization of them both, either A, from the vendor's perspective in terms of the hardware. We've seen Antbleed. That's a huge fucking problem. Imagine if all of a sudden somebody else got hold of it and poof, overnight, all those machines are just shut down. Or they're directing the hash rate at another mining pool. So that's a pretty fucking big problem. And everyone wants to put their head in the sand about it and go, sweet ass, don't worry. But not only that one. So there's definitely the 2 parts to it. The other part is the centralization that we're now very willingly giving away. So many are giving away, projects actively giving away funds to specifically centralized exchanges like CZ, for example. We look at Poloniex, currently got around about 200 million DigiByte on their exchange, which isn't that much given we've got a circulating supply of about 12 billion.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a decent chunk of change. Now, when CZ was talking with us last year, was it last year? Yeah, it was last year, because that happened in like August or something. They wanted 300 million, I think it was, in DigiByte. 300 million DigiBytes, not $300 million.
Listing fee.
The listing fee was like, and I think it was, they were saying it was like not even 500,000. It was a couple $100,000. I don't remember the specifics, because I intentionally wasn't in those actual chats with the staff. Although now I'm regretting it because I would have loved to have recorded it, like the call.
Yeah, I'm sure that would come in
what
handy.
they wanted. Sorry?
I'm sure that would come in handy at some point.
I know. No one fucking believes anybody when we go, this happened. It's like, oh, you're talking shit. No. So they wanted a couple $100,000, and they wanted, I think it was 300 million DigiByte. Poloniex have 200 million, like 210 million, give or take.
And what's
that's
the,
entirely
what's the total
possible.
supply?
Sorry?
What's the total supply?
Current circulating supply is 12 billion out of 21 billion.
So
it's not like it's not a lot, but it's enough to fuck with things if you're that way inclined, right?
Yeah, if you want to crash things on markets and stuff.
Yeah, and you've got that kind of funds, you can just play with it.
Yeah, so that makes me think, right? So they asked for the listing fee in just, do they ask for it in DigiByte, or just this is what it costs, pay however you want?
No, so they wanted both. So they wanted a couple $100,000, like Binance Coin or Bitcoin was the two that they would take. Binance Coin, because they can then take it, they've now got it back, they can use that to then sell on the market, pump the price up, obviously, right? So they're fucking clever.
And everyone wants Bitcoin.
And everyone wants Bitcoin. And then the alternative, yeah, because that's what you'd use to buy the BNB with. Otherwise, you'd pump the price up with whatever. So the other thing is they wanted circulating, like part of the circulating supply. They wanted a couple of % of it. They wanted like 300 million, give or take. Now, when you factor in, like, I don't know what our trading volume is on a daily basis. It's that I think is somewhere around about like half a day's trading volume. But that's still a decent chunk of money if you're going to be an asshole about it. Now,
yeah, of course.
If we, like, let's say hypothetically, Jared still had like a shit ton of DigiByte because he was mining at the start alongside everybody else. So everything he's got was fairly mined on the open market with his graphics cards. Other people had a lot more graphics cards than him, so whatever. Let's say through some miracle, he had 300 million DigiByte. To be honest, I don't even think he has a million DigiByte. I'm not sure if you'd like me saying that. But whatever. It was on a live stream the other day and his Exodus wallet popped up.
Yeah, well, so it's kind of open knowledge then. If one were so inclined.
Yep. You could go and find out that he had less than a million.
So CoinGecko, because I'm not using CoinMarketCap anymore.
I love CoinGecko. I have for years. They're great.
Yeah, says around 2 million 24-hour volume USD.
Right. So what's that in DigiByte though? Because I don't know what our price is at the moment. I genuinely haven't seen it in like a week and a half.
It's like about a half a cent. So, yeah, but basically that it might be not, again, as we discussed previously, it might not be DigiByte that has the most effect from this kind of practice, but it's the practice that's like, I wonder what happened with Steam for Steam listing. Did Steam pay a listing fee? If so, like, especially when you get to more and more proof of stake coins, where the influence is much more hard, then you can just say, oh, the practice of listing fee, and then they just take that and then they hold on to it, take it, hold on to it, take it, hold on to it, and then it's just like,
it compounds is the word, right? You're like compounding interest.
You have influence in projects.
Sorry?
You have direct influence in governance and consensus of projects if you want a big chunk of them.
Now, it's not too bad for us because obviously we don't have a centralized body. We're not an ICO. There is no great big war chest of funds. And Jared's never had a whole bunch of DigiByte. So we couldn't pay it if we wanted. But let's say hypothetically we did pay it to them. Somehow there was somebody in the community who was rich as shit and was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Yep, maybe let's McAfee. Maybe McAfee's like, yeah, I've got myself like 500 million DigiByte here. You can have 300 million DigiByte and
Mm-hmm.
200 grand US dollars or something. Or not
Yeah.
US dollars, sorry, BNB. Cool. That's okay, great. But now they've got that. What are they going to do with it? They're going to like still the markets with liquidity. Well,
Mm-hmm.
liquidity is basically just them buying and selling
Mm-hmm.
and messing with the price, right?
Yeah.
That you're literally giving them money so that they can mess around with the order books.
Yeah. So this kind of problem you have with, a group of influential people kind of playing kingmakers in the space and centralizing it in that way. Do you think that that's something that will sort of solve itself as the space grows and goes on, or do you think it's kind of a thing you have to make sure to claw our way out of right now?
That's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
There's two sides to it. So the one side is that we do nothing and we just let it take its course and we can hope for the best, or we can hope they get arrested and shut down because Binance has already been shut down in like Hong Kong, Japan, China. They're now they're supposedly not in Malta anymore, but that's because there was a change in government in Malta, and the new person who's in government isn't quite as chummy with them, if you will. So
Mm.
they've been effectively kicked out of four or five countries now. That's we can hope that happens. We can just hope for it, basically, because that's literally all that you're doing is
Mm.
hoping, which is very anti the Bitcoin model of don't hope for the best.
Yeah. Don't
Don't
trust,
like,
verify.
exactly verify it. Don't just hope that it's don't trust that CD is going to do the right thing. Of course not. We have empirical evidence that says that he can't be trusted. We have several of them, in fact. There was
Mm.
a tweet earlier on, actually. I wonder if I can quickly find it from a friend of mine, not so fast. What did he write in that? Here we go. Somebody said, "What do you find to be dishonest about CZ?" So he wrote, "Fake volumes to outcompete other exchanges in 2017," which we can talk about all day because they used DigiByte's name and things to try and like boost their exposure and things like that. Gouging for listing fees, baiting open source projects with free listings, stealing public IP via oppositional research designed as listing criteria, which we saw with the block. False front charity. Again, the charity is full of shit. False DEX, which isn't decentralized in the slightest, and the BNB blockchain, which isn't a blockchain in the slightest either. It's, again, all full of shit. So
Mm-hmm.
we have some pretty solid evidence that at least there's smoke, right?
Yes, of
Like,
course.
so even if it's not completely on fire yet, let's not trust. Because we should be knowing better. So the other side, like that's one side of it, that we hope that he's either going to get arrested, shut down, kicked out of the country yet again, or that he's going to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. And clean it up.
He's a good person. Or in Justin's case, he's going to use his ill-gotten gains from essentially pre-mined shitcoin
Mm-hmm.
and become valid and become genuine. Despite the fact that he got drunk and he told everybody it's a shitcoin, he doesn't know why it's
Yeah.
worth anything.
Well, that's
It's
a
the Ethereum killer. That's its only
that's
value
an
prop.
interesting kind of concept, like where people have skeletons in their past but not in their present, and they hope not in their future, where people
Yep.
clean things up. So, for example, maybe the hope is, well, I'll get to that. I'll change my wicked ways when I get big
Yep.
enough to be able to afford it. Like once I build
Yep.
the empire, I'll just get it all, and that kind
Yeah,
of
didn't clean out the closet.
yes, and that kind of reminds me of the. I'm sure you heard the whole like digital currency group conspiracy theory that the Coinbases of the world and the CoinDesk and all that are all working together in this big old thing, and it's a little bit more of a you know buttoned high sort of a group. But there have been. I mean, Charlie Lee clearly used his influence as director of engineering at Coinbase to get Litecoin listed and specifically block Dash. And
Yes.
I mean, this
Yes.
the second part of that is a little bit harder to actually prove, but it's based on what he's saying. He basically, his influence kind of like people trusted, and it was an early days exchange, and stuff happened. When Dash finally got listed,
Hey, Brian, let's list Litecoin, eh? It's just about time, don't you reckon?
yeah,
And effectively, what was dead at the time, zero trading volume,
yeah,
no one from anybody.
tweeted at the company that he worked at, kind of, and it was kind of very strange. But I recently, I mean, I've heard that Coinbase is relatively rigorous in their technical analysis, and they're kind of from some inside sources. And when they added Dash for some of the quickest confirmations possible, only after 2 confirmations, because basically Dash is 51% attack proof after 1. And I guess the second is just like, well, just to be extra sure, just in case something happens. And so way faster than, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin, any other coin pretty much on the whole platform.
Given they bumped up Litecoin requiring more confirmations, they're like quadruple or something.
Yes, which proves that they, the Coinbase of today is looking into things.
They're not idiots. They know.
Or of today is, but back in the day, a little bit different. So again, you have something where you have like the influence peddlers kind of moving their thing back in the day, and then it sort of changes over time as they try to be more reasonable, objective. And of course, there's been quite a bit of nonsense published by CoinDesk in the past, and a few factually incorrect hit pieces and stuff like that. And I wonder if that's going to, in the interest of a lot of the coins that were in the digital currency group portfolio, favoring some of those favorite projects and not the others. And then I don't know if that's going to clean up, but you have these like the old school way of doing things and then the cleanup process. So what if Binance at some point decides to convert Binance token, right? The Binance coin. What if Binance decides to convert it into actual shares in the company, like an actual IPO? And of course, you have to AML KYC if you want to do that.
Terrible idea, if you ask me.
Yes.
Holy shit!
But let's just say it's instead of this weird illegal security that's not called it that it is today. What if it turns into an actual legal security, right? An actual legal thing. And what if they become registered in the U.S. and all the regulatory stuff there, let's say, headquartered in the U.S. and all the regulatory hurdles there, and they just like, first off, I think if you gain things through, the ill-gotten gain strategy, first off, old habits die hard, and it's hard to just be a different person, transform. And second,
zebra doesn't change its stripes.
Yes, and if you're good at that, you might not be good at the other way of doing things. You might just fail after a while.
And why? Like, it's clearly working for him, despite the fact that I would argue, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth and say this is your perspective, but as far as I'm concerned, he's good at being shady as shit.
Yeah.
I disagree with it completely.
Getting away with it, I guess you would say.
Yeah. Who's stopping him? How many other people are out there standing up against him and speaking out?
Yeah.
Not many. People just kind of accept it.
It's funny. It's like a Game of Thrones style drama with all the power players and all the deals. And then, of course, Sun is a little bit more the loose cannon, just doing his thing that is kind of like using the protection of the group. So what do you think can be done about this then? If something has to be hopefully done, and you don't just hope for the best to go for the problem to go away, what would you do to kind of solve this greater problem of this group of people kind of controlling too big of a slice of the pie?
People care about money, right? Like, that's why a lot of people, unfortunately, are here. There are not a lot of people like yourself who are like, cool, I can be unbanked now. Sweet, I'm now unbanked. It doesn't matter, like, month to month, price go up, price go down. Who gives a shit? I'm here because I want to tell my grandkids one day I was involved in changing the world. And DigiByte to me looks like the best way that I can do this based on what, my goals are. I don't have a lot of DigiByte. Price go up, price go down. I don't give a shit. No one cares. Well, a lot of people do. I don't, sorry. So
yes, of course.
It doesn't bother me. Like, I literally took out a 30 grand loan the day before Christmas 2017. I've ridden that price all the way down. It's been painful, but I still got it, like whatever. So it's shit happens.
Yes,
now, the problem is that money blinds a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you start attacking BNB, a lot of people will have BNB in their portfolio because they are the biggest exchange in terms of trading volume. And so people are like, I don't want you saying that you're attacking, like the price is going to go down of what I hold on to. I don't like that. Shut up. Don't say anything. Like, be quiet. So it's a tough one because we've basically, as a whole broader space, we've got to get to this place where it's not just about the price. And it's really interesting as well that you mentioned everything that happened with Litecoin, because the same thing then also happened with ETC.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing happened with BCH. The same thing happened with Zcash. The same thing happened with 0x. Like, they've been involved with each of those along the way. I don't remember who it was from Coinbase was involved with the what's the name of that foundation for Zcash?
Could be the Zcash Foundation or the Electric Coin Company.
Electric Coin Company, yeah. So someone who was involved with the Electric Coin Company was quite high up at Coinbase, like some kind of like senior marketing or something. I don't remember the specifics, but I looked into it all at the time. And then like very shortly thereafter, 0x gets listed.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, these coins that have nothing to do with the listing criteria, which I was very familiar with, having completed it 4 times myself. I knew that thing back to front, inside and out. Neither of those should have been listed according to their criteria. And now we've got XRP as well.
Yeah.
Ripple.
Yeah. Ripple. It used to be, I remember when it was called Ripple.
Yeah. Back when I was involved, it was only known as Ripple. It was Ripple Daemon. That's literally the name of the server software. Ripple D. Like, it's not called XRP. It's called the fucking company name because that's them. Or whatever. Don't get me started.
So what would you have people do to get away from this whole thing?
This is going to sound real like cheesy and real like wet behind the ears, optimistic, but decentralized exchanges like Blocknet.
Mm-hmm.
There is such a need for them because unlike Binance DEX, which isn't a DEX because they still charge you listing fees, you've still got to be on Binance. It is permissioned. CZ holds the keys to the kingdom. With Blocknet, that is not the case. The trade will go through regardless of who wants it to or not. There is no permission there, which is really quite fascinating. That is going to that's the easiest way to take the power away from them. But I'm also very well aware that a lot of people, like there is currently $4 billion sitting hedged in like stable coins, US dollar equivalents, be it Tether, be it USDC, be it Binance USD, whatever they are. That's a lot of money sitting on the sidelines waiting to just go, all right, here we go. And a lot of that's also in exchanges. Because most people don't run their own like Omni node
Of course.
for their Tether coins. They just leave it in an exchange. The only way that we're going to be able to remove that power that they have is either one, they get caught out by the cops effectively. They go to prison. Or two, they get kicked out of their country and they're forced to shut down because for reasons they can't continue. Those are very, very unlikely, although I do know that there are certain governments that are investigating that kind of thing. Of course. It makes sense too. The other way is that we take control. We become the masters of our own destiny. We don't trust, we verify. We use those decentralized, genuinely decentralized exchanges. None of this nonsense about, yeah, sure, we're decentralized. We run on 12 validator nodes. Ha, ha, ha. The sun now controls all of them. Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so decentralized exchanges are basically the big way out as far as that part. I mean,
it seems the easy way. It's not even the path of least resistance, really, is it? Because you can't use your stable coins, which a lot of people trade with Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So,
well, the thing about, the answer to centralization is decentralization. It's extremely, I would say it almost sounds low intellect to say that, like almost super obvious, but it's kind of what you have to do. You have to just sort of take it in your own hands. Now,
not your keys, not your crypto.
Yes, now let's spin it in a little bit more of a positive direction, although that is a happy end to a big, long, complainy rant about how everyone's crooks and y'all should go to jail and all that kind of stuff. What's DigiByte been up to these days?
The whole time ranting, right? Like,
Yes. Well, now you get to guess about DigiByte and what it's been up to these days, and what are some of the new, let's just say last year or so,
Right.
and not like great technological advancements and other kind of things that have come out that you're just like, wow, this is cool, and or use cases that have been realized that you're like, oh, it started being used in this.
Yeah, so there's two main things there that come to mind. So the first one is going to be our AutoCrypt FPGA focused hashing algorithm. The idea being that we don't just want to be all ASICs, not because ASICs are bad, but because we don't want to be victim to the likes of AntBleed.
Yes, the whole
That
a centralization of manufacturing of mining hardware.
exactly. And so if we can avoid that kind of thing, like decentralization is it's interesting. It's not too dissimilar from what Ricardo Spagni, Fluffy Pony, says about
Mm-hmm.
Monero. Like, privacy is not something you just achieve and you tick a box and then you all go home. It's something you've got to constantly fight for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure, obviously, being in the privacy space with Dash, you're well aware that that's pretty true. The same thing is with decentralization. It's not just a case of, right, we are decentralized because we run on 10,000 nodes. Yay, everybody can go home now, we're done. What about the decentralization of the mining, the participation, the hardware that is used within the mining, be it GPU vendors or be it ASICs and the people that are making those ASICs? What about the distribution of the coins? Is that fair enough? What about who's being involved with the development? That's another sore point for us because in terms of active contributors to the development for DigiByte, there's really only half a dozen code contributors. We've then got like a few dozen other that are contributing to things like translations and website infrastructure and things like that. So the idea behind AutoCrypt is we don't just want ASICs. We also want to do some FPGAs. We're looking at ProgPow, and ProgPow is something that we've been talking with Christy Lee Minahan about. She's even offered to help us out with implementation of it, which is fantastic. I'm so excited for that. And get ProgPoW into DigiByte for that. Again, it is very neutral in terms of who it prefers. It's not preferring AMD. It's not preferring NVIDIA. And who the fuck knows about Intel and their graphics card if it ever comes out or not. But and then we're also looking at, well, what about CPU as well, so that people can contribute from a CPU? Then what about staking? And I'm going, I don't know about staking because of a whole lot of other reasons that are mostly DigiByte specific, but whatever. So AutoCrypt has helped us with that. Now, the difficult part is that in the meantime, there is definitely a manufacturer who's out there who has been the predominant manufacturer because we are still a relatively small blockchain project. And so there's not a lot of incentive for dozens of different hardware vendors out there to go, yep, we're going to go work on a bitstream for these FPGAs and things. It's a real balancing act.
Yeah.
And it's not something that there's always a specifically one correct answer for. But I like that. I think it's fascinating. I think that choice and the way that things are going is quite exciting. So we've had great feedback about AutoCrypt. We've also had other people that are like, we could make an ASIC for it. And it's a case of, okay, if you can make an ASIC for it, congratulations, go make an ASIC for it then. And,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't specifically have to show it to us, but if you can do that, and if you've made an ASIC and you're securing 20% of our blockchain, thanks. Thank you. We appreciate that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it's a case of, okay, well, even if it didn't work out according to plan, worst case scenario, we're no worse off than we were, so why not?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. So what's the second big one you were talking about?
The second big one is going to be digi assets and issuing of tokens and assets and trading cards and all that sort of fun stuff on top of the DigiByte blockchain. It is still nowhere near where it needs to be. We still haven't even got iOS sorted. So yeah, that kind of gives you a bit of an understanding. We've got it out on Android. We've got it out on our Go wallet, which is the, is it not BitPay? Is it BitPay? It might be BitPay. Yeah. The wallet that a whole lot of other blockchain projects and stuff use. So we have that on PC as a Chrome extension and things like that. But we still need it for iOS.
Yeah.
The idea that you can very cheaply issue an asset on top of the blockchain, and this is very different from Raven coin, where it's going to cost you 500 Raven, which is a decent chunk of change,
Mm-hmm.
and you can only have that one with that one name. So if I issue test, no one else can issue test. The idea that we generate something like pseudo randomly, basically, that is effectively kind of like an address, so it's a unique identifier and things.
Yeah. So how does the naming service work for assets then?
In terms of,
In terms of, like you said, if, with Ravens, one and done. Only
yeah,
one person can have that. But with DigiByte, you said it wouldn't be necessarily the same way.
yeah, it's based off it's based off your public key.
Mm-hmm.
Either you have a locked asset that is locked and you permanently cannot change the metadata associated with it, or it's unlocked and you can reissue it. You can add more supply. You can change the title of it, which
Mm-hmm.
again is all just metadata effectively stored in a torrent. And so because it's a unique identifier, it's effectively the asset ID looks kind of like an address that starts with U for unlocked, L for
Mm-hmm.
locked. And so if you wanted to, you would be checking the metadata associated with it rather than the actual asset name. So that's where the difference kind of comes in.
Yeah. So it seems like, and that's one thing that I've noticed is the one thing that I don't know if it surprised me, but it was definitely interesting to see is just how much the token space kind of came forward. So at first I thought that when people figure out the ICO boom, that it was just like, oh yeah, we can have our own little token. We don't have to build our own blockchain, and we can just go fleece a bunch of people for a bunch of money. And I just thought it was going to be an up and down. But after the ICO boom went away, there's still like half of everything runs on Ethereum, and Bitcoin Cash got the SLP tokens. Of course, Ravencoin came around, and pretty much everything has like a token thing. I know that that's somewhere in the Dash platform roadmap eventually, and but more importantly, there's just a lot of demand for it. Everyone wants to do not just transactions, but they want to ascribe extra little bits of data so you can kind of issue everything on that. And it seems like there's a ton of redundancy in the space where everything is kind of trying to do like build your thing on our product, and people used to do that on BTC back in the day. Like I remember Counterparty. Do you remember Counterparty?
No, the name's familiar, but I don't know the story.
It was essentially some sort of a asset type thing that was built on top of the Bitcoin blockchain that sort of went away when the scaling problems happened. But
so the Tether and Omni layer was built on top of Mastercoin, which is on top of BTC back in the day. They became colored coins, which is the open assets protocol, which is what we've also based off, essentially. So yeah, they hit scaling ceilings. They never went anywhere. It was messy as shit when we were first looking at the code and trying to, the fact that we basically had so many blocks and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. So we've taken that and tried to polish it off and make it usable. And what we've done with our Android one is it is an SPV wallet, but unfortunately at the moment we're still using API calls for assets on top. So we're working on it in like a pure native SPV implementation, but that's difficult as shit, man.
Of course. Well, anything worth doing is doing, and it does kind of give me good thoughts to see that the two biggest things that are being worked on at DigiByte seem to be the two biggest things, or two of the bigger things in the crypto space as a whole. First off, how do we maintain security and decentralization of the entire operation? And second, how do we issue assets on this so that people can build the global economy on this network? And it seems like those are the two biggest things let's assume that the network works. You can send and receive things. That's like the kind of, that's how you get in the door. But then beyond that, it's like, one, is it secure? Is it going to last? Is it not going to be just, is it going to be the prime value proposition of crypto at all, which is, no one can shut this thing down. And second, can you build things on it?
Yeah. Like, what use does it have aside from just sending value between you and I, which is effectively what Bitcoin's primary.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be that's still the biggest piece of the pie, but it's the hardest piece of the pie because everyone, all those utopian Bitcoin dreams, and to a great extent, Dash is sort of the same way and trying to become peer-to-peer electronic cash for the world. It just, we're going to replace money itself. Like, we're going to replace value with this new thing. That's
Yep.
hugely ambitious. Now,
Yep.
before that, people want to, they want to, for example, let's say, base something like Tether. As much as I don't like it, whatever, you base something like that on one of these chains. It's like, well, we're just using our money on your little platform. It's still our thing. We're, or a company, like Libra, say, starts issuing their little tokens on your thing,
Yep.
or then someone puts shares of their whatever, or a registry of this. They start building in there, and it's ultimately, it's the number. It's huge. It's everything. It's like the second to money, because money is everything, right? Everything, commerce runs on money. Now,
Yeah.
the second thing is when you build is what generates money, businesses. And businesses want to build on top of infrastructure. Like how
Yep.
many people, how many businesses have say a Facebook page, or then they have like a Slack channel, then they have their own, they carved out their own little piece of something else. And
Mm.
that's what, commerce goes towards. And so when you have like a blockchain network and stuff that doesn't have those problems and fees and sign up and all this kind of stuff, eventually you're going to have, every, like, let's just be utopian for a second. Let's just say every company will have a DigiByte asset, their own proprietary thing that will, it could be like stock in the company, but it could also be they, issue identities as far as like
Mm.
position profiles on, or however it works, or, communication channels. Like people start putting that on that. And it could be that there's a few different cryptocurrencies instead of, it could be that crypto tokens or blockchain projects replace companies that provides, overarching services today, like say a Facebook. Then
Yeah.
instead of that, you'll use a decentralized crypto network, and each company plugs in to their whole
I
thing.
fully envisage a future that kind of mirrors that sentiment where, yeah, like if you're, let's say, for example, we're talking about trading cards, Major League Baseball, for example. I've even personally been in talks with other, do I say the name? No, it's not. With other large sporting uh, organizations within the USA and things.
Yeah.
Uh, let's leave it at that.
Yes.
They let's say they issue some trading cards on there that you can use back and forth. You buy and sell instead of like a physical one that gets, foxing around the edges, it wears out over time, the ink fades, that kind of thing. Even shares in a company, like you say, like I envisage, and this is why I've no problem, obviously, like discussions between Dash and DigiByte, because the two are not specifically immediately the going after the same piece of the pie.
Yeah, there's a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a little bit of overlap, but it's like
Yeah,
unoverlapping space.
with Dash literally being like digital cash and the privacy centric focus is there compared with DigiByte. That's why we're not called DigiCoin, because it is DigiByte, a byte of data. The idea that you would use it as infrastructure. And now I know that it potentially upsets a lot of people to hear me say that I wouldn't want to see DigiByte used as cash, even though I advocated for it to be used in Venezuela and the likes previously. Sure, but I don't think that's our best value proposition. Whereas I think that there are other projects like Dash which you could use as digital cash, be it with
Yeah, and so
let's leave it there.
one of the blockchain products I use the most frequently is LBRY, because it's the first, I would say, actually mostly decentralized content platform out there. A lot of these other ones tokenize user rewards and have anti-censorship kind of ethos, but as far as it's actually like all actually out there on the blockchain. And so I can envision a day, and it's already kind of happening, because the client itself is like a YouTube, the full node client or whatever is like a YouTube player sort of thing. And so you build let's say every company have their LBRY channel with all their kind of stuff. Instead of going to the YouTube company, they go to this coin. And so what if you buy extra tokens, or you use your ad revenue, or your revenue from that, if it goes in and out of Dash, because you don't necessarily need to run everything on one thing. You don't need to be buying your coffee with LBRY tokens, like with
No,
LBRY credits. You can buy it with Dash, and then when you want,
coffee doesn't even need to be on the blockchain anyway. Who gives a shit? Like
yeah,
5 years from now, if you did or did not buy a coffee.
yes. Well, as long as you can prove it. Well, that seems like a good time to wrap this whole thing up. Where can people find more about the stuff you do so I can give you a big old shout out?
If people want to find out about DigiByte, the easiest way is to go to digibyte.io. We've actually just revamped our website, translated it already into like a dozen languages. I'm so proud of the team for that. It's freaking awesome. You can check out dgbwiki.com. We've got a wiki that's got a whole lot of information about DigiByte, guides that we've written, ways to get in touch, technical support, marketing materials, things like that. We've also got the DigiByteandFriends.com podcast, which I've done with yourself as well, and had people on to basically talk about things that are not just DigiByte related, but relate to crypto in general. Lastly, if you want, you can catch me on Twitter. I'm at DGB_chilling, and I like to talk a lot of shit on there. So if you don't want to follow me, no
That's
hard
what
feelings.
Twitter is for.
Yeah.